Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Seekamentor podcast series where we discuss various topics regarding product management and helping aspiring professionals to move into product management or transition into product management as a career. I am Dhruv Gupta, your host for today's session. And also today, with us we have Gunjan Gupta, working as a product manager at Cast24, and have been guiding and mentoring many aspiring professionals who want to build their career into product management or start their journey into product management. Welcome to today's podcast, Gunjan. We are really happy to have you here.
Thanks, Room. Thank you. Thanks a lot to the entire team of Seekamentor for basically calling me. I'm really excited to be here.
Great. So, just introductions first. Could you please introduce yourself and share about your professional journey with
Sure.
us?
So I graduated from IIT Delhi. I did my BTech and MTech from IIT. After that, basically, I prepared for civil services for 2 years. When that sort of didn't work for me is when I actually transitioned to product. So I have about close to 4.5 years of work experience, wherein I've worked in both early stage and sort of mature stage startups. Currently, I'm working as a product manager at Cast24, and here basically I'm into the India buyer business, wherein essentially if a customer wants to buy a used car from the platform, then they can sort of do it. So that's currently what I'm doing right now. Apart from sort of doing product management, I think I've kind of developed an interest in writing on LinkedIn, and that's something I really enjoy. And talking to early PMs and aspiring PMs, and sort of helping them in whatever way I can. So that's, yes, apart from work, that's what I enjoy doing.
Great. That's diverse journey I can see. And could you tell us more about why did you choose this path of mentoring and guiding professionals, which is such a great cause itself. But then again, why did you thought of, okay, I'm working on product management as well. Let me also dive in this direction as well.
Right. So, I mean, Dhruv, essentially what happened, my journey was like that basically, when I told you, right? So I did my civil services, and post that, when I was sort of transitioning into corporate sector, didn't really know much about what product as a field was. And probably 4-5 years back, it wasn't that big of a hype and that kind of a craze as it is now, right? And typically, I just saw at that point of time, I just felt it was a role that involves a lot of problem solving. And with a lot of diversity, I read a little bit about it and sort of jumped into it. So a lot of learning has happened on the role itself,
Mhm.
building products along the way and sort of learning a lot, upskilling myself in terms of doing a lot of courses, doing a lot of learning, etc. Now, because it's a bit of an unstructured domain. It's not like a 2 + 2 is equal to 4, right? So, I mean, a lot of learning was there as part of my journey. And that kind of a struggle is something that I felt a lot of other people also, they face when they are sort of transitioning into it. There's no structured curriculum, and there is no way to sort of learn it and then apply it on your job. And that is when I felt that at least whatever I'm learning, if I can sort of also help others with respect to learning it in a more structured way, and that also helps me, because I really feel that teaching is the best form of learning. So when you kind of teach something, you become even more confident about it, and it also helps other people. So that, I mean, that is how it all started. That is how I started to kind of share my learnings and whatever I used to learn, in terms of either sharing things on LinkedIn or either sort of mentoring people one-on-one, and people sort of enjoyed it, and that's how the journey sort of continued.
Great. And it's really good that you enjoy teaching. And and just on that, many people have questions around interviews, and regarding that how it is different than for a person who is into early stage of their career, and or someone who is already a PM and looking for a role which is more in terms of seniority wise or responsibility wise. Is Then could you please throw some light on if there are any major differences, or in terms of approach, somebody who is a bit different in terms of their journey and in their careers at that point of time.
Got it. Now, I mean, the entire process of interview preparation and these different interviews that are there, there are different types of cases, of course, in this entire interview preparation. And this process varies company to company. It
Mhm.
varies from the role you're applying. So, I mean, this process can be very different if you are interviewing for an early stage startup, very much in the 0 to 1 sort of a journey versus a mature company versus a MNC and a very mature sort of a startup. So, of course, these processes will vary. If you're interviewing as a APM versus as if you're interviewing as a head of product, as a VP / even a senior PM, again, the kind of questions and the kind of interview steps that will be expected will be very different. But just, I think, to give you like a nutshell summary of the different types of cases that you can sort of expect and how they vary with the kind of different roles that are there in the product management hierarchy, I'll throw some light there. So essentially, in the entire interview series for product management, there are about 5 to 6 different types of cases, which we can sort of bucketize it into. So one is basically the behavioral questions. Now, just also I'll elaborate on each type of questions and what is sort of, each of these bucket entails. So something like a behavioral question is more about you as a person, right? So it can also involve, your past experience. It can involve questions around, say, for example, stakeholder management, about processes. So for example, I can ask a question like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? As a product manager, say, for example, if you're already one. Or I could ask you that, say, for example, your senior is saying something, is asking you to, or your manager for that matter is asking you to do something or build a feature which you are not sort of very convinced with. So how will you sort of convince them to build it? How will you bring that sort of conviction on the table? Or how will you say no to them, right? So these are some types of behavioral questions wherein you are put in a particular sort of a situation and sort of asked that what will your response be, right? So that is one category of questions. It could also involve something like, because product managers work very closely with engineers and engineering counterparts. So people also want to know, how do you establish those relations with your engineering counterparts when you're working with them? So it could also be that, your engineering manager is sort of refusing to build a particular feature because they feel that there's a lot of tech debt that we should focus on. But on the contrary, the business priority is something which is very different, and your business is pushing you to do something like this. So how will you go and convince your team, your engineering team, or what is the solution that you will bring to the table to resolve this kind of a dispute? Questions like these are basically what can be expected in some sort of a behavioral bucket. That's one. The second type of questions that basically are there are around product sense, product sense, product design, product improvement. So it's this entire bucket, in which you are sort of being critically assessed on your ability to build a new product or improve an existing product, right? So some examples of questions could be like, like for example, design an ATM for a blind. I think one of the most popular question which just pops up on Google when anyone starts preparing, right? Design an ATM for blind, or something like, how would you improve YouTube? Right? So this is like an existing product, everyone uses it, and then you as a PM, if you are a PM at YouTube, essentially, how will you what will you bring on the table? What are the things that you will do to improve it? So again, there are frameworks to sort of solve this problem. I mean, initially when the question is just sort of thrown, you just get thrown out of the, you just feel out of the place that, oh, it's already such a successful product. What do you do to kind of improve it? But again, there are ways of how you think about it. So that's the entire product improvement, product design, product sense bucket. Then there are questions around analytics, right? Analytics and data. So it could be, say, for example, because for any product manager, essentially at the end, the success will be gauged by moving the metrics. So you might be building the best features, but if you do not know what are the right metrics that should be measured, so it's a fail at the end. So essentially, in the product metrics round or in the analytics round, you are typically being assessed around your ability to work with data, take data-driven decisions. What metrics will you be sort of measuring to of any particular feature that you're sort of handling? So an example question could be, say, for example, you are a PM at Facebook, and what are the metrics that you're going to measure for Facebook reactions, right?
Okay.
So questions like these could be there. Then there could be questions around technical questions. mostly in Indian companies, these technical questions, at least for, for small and mid-sized startups, it's not that popular. But of course, for mature companies, technical rounds are also present. So it could be something like, say, for example, take me through the system design of the last product that you worked on, right? So you have to understand the entire tech architecture and exactly how the entire backend and front end, etc. systems were built for the product that you were already working on. For Mang companies, it could even be something like build a system design for Netflix, say for example. So questions like those would also be there. Then then there are product strategy questions. Now these strategy questions could be around so in the strategy bucket there could be multiple things. It could be, say for example, GTM strategy, which is basically go to market strategy. Or it could be so one example of a go-to-market strategy could be, say, for example, you have to launch a new product, and what will be your strategy of going to the market, launching that product out in the market. Or it could be, say, for example, a market entry sort of a case wherein, let's say we are Amazon, and you're asked that should Amazon enter into the travel market? So it's a strategy question here, whether we should do this or whether we should not do this. So here a lot of your business understanding is also sort of tested with, of course, your product acumen. So yeah, these are the broad bucketization of the different types of cases. Now, the kind of questions and which bucket will be sort of picked up again depends a lot on the interview and the kind of company you're interviewing for. But the general trend is that, at early roles, APM sort of roles, you can expect guesstimates. One thing that I missed is basically guesstimates. Guesstimates happen to be one of the most popular, cases that are sort of asked because, they kind of assess the analytical ability of a candidate and sort of working with data and working on very unstructured problems and how do you bring structure to it. So at an APM role, guesstimates, product design questions, most of these are some of the popular questions. And of course, the case would normally start with behavioral questions, talking about yourself, talking about your past experience, and then it sort of gradually moves into either of the two cases. So at an APM or a PM level, these are the kind of questions that you can expect. When you go for more senior roles, now there the game changes to more around product growth, product strategy, your leadership questions. So yeah, it could be a mixed bucket there. Product design can come for senior roles also these days, but other more like the broad demarcation of the different types of cases basis role.
Sure. Yeah, that's really helpful, and to know like various kind of questions which can be asked in an interview as well, right? So that would be really helpful to any aspiring professional who wants to move to product management. On that, what does the typical product management interview process look like based on your experience, and you've mentored so many people?
Right. So typically, I think the companies have about 4 to 5 rounds. Again, when I'm saying this 4 to 5 rounds varies again, company to company. In early stage startups, it could directly be just 2 to 3 rounds directly taken by the founding team itself and moving ahead. Basis my past experience, at least the companies where the interview structure is more formal and set up properly, there you can expect somewhere about 4 to 5 rounds. And for example, the first round could be around, just you'll first have your resume shortlisting done. Once the resume shortlisting is sort of done, you will have a call with your HR. Your HR will sort of ask you all the basic questions, a little bit about your past experience, your expected salary and negotiation standards and what is it that you're expecting. So that will happen. After that, basically, the first round could be anything around a product design case. It could either be a guesstimate case and a little bit about yourself and your past work experience. And when I'm talking about past work experience, so here also, I think one of the things that a lot of candidates fail to do is, of course, what case comes to you in the interview is not in your control, but your past experience and how you sort of talk about it is in your control. That is something that you can prepare. But I see a lot of candidates fail to even prepare that section well, to be articulate and to talk about the most important points that generates interest in a conversation about what is it that you did. In a crisp manner. If you're not able to communicate, it just doesn't ignite a lot of interest for me to talk to you about your past work experience.
Makes
So
sense.
I think it becomes very important to even prepare that segment and about tell me about yourself also, which a lot of candidates I feel just do not prepare. And it's like that icebreaker question that happens right in the beginning and sets the tone of the conversation for the next 1 hour. Yeah, so I mean, so about in the 3 to 4 rounds, I mean, for one or 2 rounds would be about one of these two cases. Then there could be even an assignment round, which is basically a take-home sort of an assignment. You will be given a problem statement. It could be of the company that you're interviewing for. It could be any other company also. And you're expected to sort of either prepare a deck or like a Word document around how would you go about solving that problem statement. Then the next round that happens is on that assignment that you've submitted, wherein there'll be questions asked around that assignment, and then there could be a final round with a senior leader, either from business, either from product, and it is more around like a cultural fit to understand more about you and whether you'll be able to sort of fit in the company culture, etc. So yeah, so these are the typical types of rounds. I mean, the first initial rounds only go around about the different types of cases and your problem solving ability. The later ones are more just to assess your overall behavioral fit and your candidate fit, cultural fit in the company.
Yeah, sure, makes sense. And can you suggest, how can someone prepare for product management interviews? Is there any resources you would recommend to aspiring professionals?
Got it. Now, one thing again,
Can you suggest, how can someone?
with when at least a lot of people I speak to, when everyone at the end of the day wants to first get a product management job, right? Now,
Yeah.
people, what they start doing is they would start reading a lot about product management. They would start learning a lot about design and tech and everything. And when you actually start to read about a lot of things, the literature is vast. You can go in as much depth as you want. Anyways, it's a very diverse field wherein a lot of different skill sets are required for you to become one. And as a result, but actually knowing a lot of things about product management versus preparing for an interview, preparing for a type of case is very different. So you have to have that goal very clear in your mind, especially when you start to prepare for interviews, not just get into, we'll buy all the books and we'll just buy all the courses and kind of start learning about product management. That, of course, you have to do. And that will happen a lot when you get on the job also. But be very focused with respect to interview preparation when you're doing one, right? I think that's very important. Otherwise, you're just bombarded with a lot of literature, a lot of things to read, and you will not feel confident about the interview preparation ever. Now, when it comes to preparing for an interview, and the goal is basically to get a job at the end of the day, right? Now, here, one thing that I feel is that different types of cases that I just spoke about, right? Uh, Learn a little bit about these types of cases. Look at the kind of questions that are present. What are the kind of questions that are asked in that company first? There are a lot of sites that give you that information. Once you get a nab of what are the types of questions and the types of cases that are there, go a little backward, right? So look at the questions, look at the types of cases that are asked, then look at how to solve these different types of cases. So
Yeah.
here also there are a lot of set frameworks. There are these frameworks which help you kind of structure, put a structure to your answer, so that firstly you get a hang of how to solve these types of cases, right? So read
Sure.
about that, internalize those frameworks. Then after that, practice more questions internally itself. When I say internally, I mean just kind of practice it yourself, different types of questions, so that you get confident about each of these types of cases, right? Now, once you have practiced enough type of cases of each category, then the next thing is basically to kind of speak it out. Because knowing how to solve is one thing, but kind of solving it by explaining it to someone on a call, and that impromptu thinking when someone is just looking at you, that is another skill, and that requires working under pressure is another skill that you have to sort of develop. Then you start practicing mocks with your peers itself. So you can just ask your friend or people who are also preparing to just give you a question, and then you can sort of practice with them. That will at least help you to think on point, and think on your feet. So do that. Once you're more confident with that, then take a few mocks with experts.
Mm.
That will give you even more confidence, and whatever little bit of polishing that is needed, that will help you in that. And then you're of course good to go and kind of be in the final interview with the company. So these are some of the processes and the steps that you can sort of do. Don't directly start taking mocks, because otherwise, you'll get a lot of feedback. Just
Yeah.
first understand the art of giving that kind of a case. So that is with respect to the process. I think with respect to the resources, there are ample resources available these days. There are a lot of YouTube videos that are there. One call out that I want to make with respect to the YouTube videos, though, is that, I mean, when people sort of see those YouTube videos and there are all cases of Ubers and Airbnbs, and people sometimes get a little bit intimidated that, would we be able to reach to that level wherein, the kind of conversation and the kind of things that are happening, you don't have to put that as the benchmark, right? At the end
Mm.
of the day, what is being assessed is your thinking process of how you approach a particular problem. So look at those interviews with the lens of understanding the structure and the thinking process.
Yeah.
Do not get intimidated and feel underconfident as to whether I will be able to get to that level to be able to answer an Airbnb or a Uber level question, and will I be able to think in those terms. It will come organically, it will not come on day one. So you have
Mm.
to be a little patient with your journey, because those cases when you're just starting off, it might look, oh, it's not something that I will be able to think on my feet, I mean, on day one. So you'll have to be a little patient with that journey. So yes, I mean, just there are a lot of different channels. Like, for example, Hello PM is there. There is PM School. There is, I think, with respect to the different other cases that I can think of, there is Exponent. Exponent has some really good, videos out there. There is PM Exercises. There are a lot of newsletters with respect to product management. So you can kind of refer to those. If you're looking at guesstimates, for guesstimates, you can also refer to a lot of consulting books have, because as for consulting preparation also, people refer to a lot of guesstimates, so you can refer to those cases as well for the preparation. So yes, I mean, just grab the questions and look at those different frameworks. There are a lot of books how to crack for cracking PM interviews also, which can also be referred for cracking these different types of cases.
Yeah, sure. I think, yeah, these all are, very relevant resources which anyone can use for their interviews. And and on that, what kind of qualities or skills, one should showcase, in their interviews. And if you think from the interviewer's perspective, also what they are looking at, in a candidate, can you show some light on that? That would be great.
Got it. I think, with respect to at least the interviews I have taken and given both, one thing that I think all interviewees as well as interviewers, they're sort of seeking is structure. Have a
Yeah.
structured approach to answer. Otherwise, you just, because anyways, the questions are so unstructured. And if your response is also unstructured and you're just, as an interviewee, if you're not taking a lead, in any particular direction and kind of giving a structure to your answer, then, you can just digress and talk about anything and everything. And you will lose
Mm.
that control in the interview. So you really need to have that control, have that structure in your answers while you're sort of speaking out. That
Yeah.
is one. The second advice would be that a lot of these cases, right? Like, for example, I told you, how would you improve YouTube? Or say, for example, how would you go about designing an ATM for blind? One thing that often happens is that, people would just start off with answers and solutions,
Yeah.
not spending enough time on the problem statement, not spending enough time on understanding the context to the problem. That's like a red flag.
Mm.
Because even on the job as a PM, how much of clarity can you bring to the problem statement in hand? That is what people are looking out for, right?
Mm.
Are you a person who's solution driven or problem driven? Do you spend that time to understand the problem first? I mean, this is something that at least a lot of senior folks that I've interviewed kind of appreciate,
Mm.
um, because you are spending that time and energy and conscious decision making on understanding who are your target customers, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, why is it a relevant problem to be solved for the company. So people just do not spend time on this, and they would just start off, okay, we can do this. In my personal opinion, I have used YouTube and I did not like this feature. So these kind of solutions, when you bring on the table, they just lack that depth and that maturity that is sort of expected out of you
Yeah.
when you're building products for a lot of users. So I think that is another advice I would give. And I think the third is basically crisp and articulate communication.
Mm.
People have very low attention span. And how can you keep that conversation very engaging and be able to communicate in very sharp words articulate words rather.
Mm.
Whatever you want to say is basically an art, so that even while you're in the case, in a 30-40 minute case, it's very difficult for that your interviewer will be with you in the entire in that entire conversation. So how do you bring that attention back is basically an art that you have to develop.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a very important skill that you have to articulate your thoughts or your thinking process to the interviewer,
Yeah.
right? So that's very relevant skill. And also, from like a lot of interviewees struggle with respect to their resume, with respect to product management resume, what kind of skill set, or what do you think is the a good resume can be, right, for aspiring person or a professional.
Got it.
Also, from like a lot of interviewees.
So here, Dhruv, I think, while there are a lot of, there's a lot of generic gyan with respect to resume. There is, there is, I'm sure, a lot of literature around it. You have to maintain that basic formatting, proper sectioning, and all of those basic hygiene things are something that you need to take care of. I'll not talk about it, but from a product management lens, I think there are 1 or 2 points that, at least I feel are very relevant. Um,
Hmm.
Typically, for an interview shortlist, when we are also scanning resumes, typically no one spends more than 7 to 10 seconds per resume, right? Because you have to, at the end of the day, shortlist, like, let's say, for example, more than hundreds of resumes in a day. So now when you're looking for that, for that 5 to 7 second, that kind of an attention span, of course, your hygiene have to be sorted out, as I mentioned before, with proper formatting and proper, all the bolds and all the structuring and articulation has to be done properly. That has to be there. The second important thing that I pay attention to, especially in the work experience section, is that your points, your whatever work experience and whatever points you have in your resume. So there is a structure to it that at least I like to follow. Every point should be able to sort of communicate, what was the problem, the context, what was the solution that you brought to the table, and what is the impact. Give me the impact in terms of quantifiable metrics if that is a possibility. Sometimes it might not be possible, but a lot of times it will be possible. So try to
Hmm.
quantify that. It automatically reflects that you as a person, either you might be a PM, if you were not a PM, even whatever role you were in, you were impact conscious. You knew whatever work you were doing and bringing on the table, what was it doing, either to the business, what was the impact it was bringing on the table, and you knew it. A lot of people do not even, they're just doing the work, they don't know what change would it bring in the numbers. But if you
Yeah.
bring that to the table, it automatically sparks a much more it ignites a lot of curiosity in the mind of the reader. If you tell me that you increase the engagement, say for example by 20% by building this feature, number
Hmm.
one, I know that this person has worked on this kind of a feature. So if I am looking to hire someone in which I have to build a similar feature, I know that yes, this person already has experience in it. And secondly, when you tell me that it gave you that sort of a jump, 10%, 20% jump, so after your
Hmm.
resume, when I'm talking to you, automatically I will ask you that what did you do in it, what were the problems you faced. So this is something that you've already prepared, and you can answer better. That's the purpose of the entire resume, right? That if you can have conversations already on your resume, why not? So I think get that impact story out. I think the problem a lot of people do in the resumes, they'll put in very generic points. We are
Hmm.
managing a team of 5 people. I built PRDs. I built wireframes. Now these are things you can write about it. I'm not saying you don't write about it, but
Hmm.
these are points that are part of your job description. You
Yeah.
are expected to sort of do it, right? Every PM is sort of doing it. What different did you do? What different things you did that can actually make you a potential hire is what you have to put down and make sure that grabs the attention in those 5 to 7 seconds when I'm scanning your resume,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, just highlighting those important, crucial points in a proper way, such that the impact is properly communicated in terms of quantifiable metrics. And then, of course, you can have all these other filler points that are also a part of the resume. Not that, I mean, these are also things that you're doing, and they are also reflecting all the other, the other parts of the job that everyone has. But don't put them as your first points.
Hmm.
At least when I'm reading, if you are putting 10 points and your 5 points are just revolving around your everyday job, then I
Hmm.
lose interest in reading a 6 point. So that's an advice there.
Yeah, I think that it's a relevant one, and to add, like, as you mentioned, it don't make it a long story. I mean, even for an experience, you put it in 4 to 5 points. I think that is more than enough to cover whatever impactful things you have done in your career, right? So yeah, focus on that. And as she mentioned, put more analytics, or in the sense of metrics wise you have driven an initiative, right? So that focus should be there. Great. So the
So here, Dhruv, I think
last question what I have is, any advice you have for the aspiring professionals who want to build their career into product management, or want to transition into product management?
right. I think my advice would be, of course, that, these days everyone is doing, they're building really good resumes. They're doing that same sort of preparation. I think one last advice that I feel that, people should also start doing is, build a personal brand for yourself.
Hmm.
I think this has become really important these days. With I mean, essentially just put in that extra effort of, putting yourself out on social media,
Yeah.
with respect to creating content, with respect to sharing whatever your learnings are there with respect to product as a field. It helps you build that sort of a credibility, uh,
Hmm.
and it helps you in better conversions. I have seen a lot of mentees. I mean, I remember not from the so-called most tier one sort of colleges, but they
Hmm.
are at such good positions in such good companies, and I think consistently, they have worked not just on their profile, but have worked a lot on creating a personal brand for themselves in terms of building either a portfolio, either be it in terms of enhancing their presence and optimizing their presence on different social media channels, be it LinkedIn, be it Twitter. So it's at the end of the day, you're building that sort of credibility and trust on platforms, which
Hmm.
which helps you get the foot in the door at least. Of course, it will not guarantee you get a job, but it'll at least help you get to that interview process, which a lot of people are not able to get. So if you want to get that reply to that cold email also a little faster, you have to work a little bit to stand out of that crowd and make that presence felt, right? So this is again, I think, one advice that at least in today's time is has become really relevant. So that is apart from all the other things that you should be doing. Just but it is a journey. The entire product management interview preparation and even cracking a job, you will have to have some patience out of it. Sometimes the markets are not in the best phase. Companies are having hiring freeze, but just go with the flow, and you will land in the best role that is possible for you. So I think that'll be my advice.
Yeah, that's a best advice anyone can have, I think. In this market where you have so much competition, right, you have to make your personal brand and then stand out. So yeah, I think that's the end of our session. But I would like to thank you for taking this session with us, and with your experience, it's a delight to hear about your experiences and the guidance you are giving to so many people in the market. So lovely to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dhruv. Lovely to have a conversation with you.
Great, great. So in the end, I just want to ask all our subscribers to comment, like, and share this particular video. And if you want to start a conversation in the comment section, please go ahead. And it was lovely talking to you. So best of luck, Gunjan.
Thanks a lot, Dhruv. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Bye.